Okay, so we will call the meeting to order, and I believe I'm a little late. It's 9:06.
9:06. Oh my God.
Okay, 9:06. Well, way to start off my presidency. Okay, let's see. So Becky Wheeler, would you like to come on up and give us
She was
the
trying to run
invitation?
away. I saw that.
We're blocking. Thank you for doing that so well.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Nice to
Year.
see you all. It's been Happy so New Year. long since we've all been together. I've been Zooming. So it's very nice to see everybody. My name is Becky Wheeler. I'm with Remaps Big Bear, and I was invited to do the invocation today, which I'm going to do a prayer. And I need to grab my, I forgot something. Sorry.
It's okay. You're good.
We're all friends here. It's good.
You're fired.
I think I'm extra nervous because we're Zooming. All right, please bow your heads.
Yeah.
Dear Father God, I would like to ask for forgiveness. I lay before you our regrets, our guilt, our heartaches. I ask for your forgiveness and trust in your everlasting grace to redeem me and guide us in the right way. Thank you for your goodness to us, Jesus. Deuteronomy 31:8 says, "But the Lord is the one who is marching before you. He is the one who will be with you. He won't let you down. He won't abandon you. So don't be afraid or scared." Psalm 73:26 says, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." A lot of us are dealing with burnout after the last couple of years of working without a vacation. And I ask that we have strength, Lord, and please help us to be more loving towards each other. Thank you for bringing us all together today. Please bless all the people that are here and the ones that couldn't make it, people that are on Zoom, Lord, hear their silent prayers. And today is day 3 in the 10 days of prayer. And thank you for allowing us to pray together in your name. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. Thank you, Becky. All righty. Debbie Walcott, come on up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh.
The flag is up there.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Debbie. All right. Okay, I need an approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written? Anyone want to make a motion? Okay, Elaine. Anyone like to second that? Do I have a second? Have you guys read the minutes? Thank you, Annette. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's see. Okay, now it's time for the affiliates to stand up and introduce themselves. So, please stand up. I'll walk around with the mic, okay?
Good morning, Miriam Marani, Big Bear Tax Lady. Morning, I'm here for the Winteridge Outpost. Crystal's out sick with COVID, so I'm representing her today.
Good morning, Tiffany Burton with Primary Residential Mortgage. Good morning, Brittany Hall with Tycor Title.
Thank you for our affiliates.
Affiliate here from Network IT.
Oh, sorry.
He's working for me right now.
Hey,
And you from?
okay.
Okay, so we'll get our program started. And I don't think I said welcome to those that are zooming in. Welcome. Let's see. Okay, Cantry recipient presentation. I believe that's Becky, right?
That will be Doug and Matt.
Doug and
Doug
Matt.
and Matt. Oh, I'm sorry. She's Meals on Wheels. How soon I forget. Come on. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm tired, right?
Good morning. First, Matt and I are going to do a song for you in advance.
Oh, yeah.
What we are going to tell you is that this year, in comparison to last year, was a lot more difficult because of the business that we were able to do, and we're thankful for that. But it was harder raising the money. It really was. We didn't quite do as well as we did last year, but everybody says, hey, you know, that's kind of the norm of charities. We raised a little over $50,000.
Woo, that's good.
And of course, as you know, every penny of that goes to charities that receive people.
We did a little bit of a holdback. We did $3,000 we hold back just for the fund for next year. So after that, then it's divided in three.
It's kind of like a seed fund. So the first one's going to be St. Joseph's. And so each party receives $15,800.
Well, that's a lot of food for a lot of hungry people. I said last year too, but when Jesus asked St. Peter, do you love me? He said, well, of course, you know I love you, of course I do. He said, feed my sheep. And then again, tend my lambs, and the third time, feed my sheep. So doing what y'all are doing and providing this beautiful fundage to support and to feed his sheep is one of the greatest ways that you can tell them you love them. You can show them you love them, more importantly. So thank you. Again, our food pantry is one of the biggest blessings that we have in our parish, and your all's generosity and support makes it possible and makes what we do possible. So heartfelt gratitude for all of your hard work, for your generosity, for your continued support, and know that y'all are in our prayers. And I know times are kind of tough right now with trying to get some houses to sell. There's plenty of people wanting to buy, but there's no houses to sell. Well, yesterday was the feast day for French Canadian Saint Andre Bassett. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the area of the St. Joseph statue in the yard. Well, this is where it came from. It came from son of St. Andre Bassett. So, and he was a big St. Joseph guy. And so we at St. Joseph are also big fans of St. Joseph. And so we will pray through the intercession of St. Joseph, through the intercession of St. Andre Bassett to help y'all find some homes to sell. Keep y'all working. So, but again, bottom of our hearts, thank you so very much. And please keep up the good work, and God bless you.
Thank you.
all right, and our next one is Believers Chapel. Yes,
I couldn't hear that amount. What was that amount? again?
it's $15,800.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, guys. I don't know, you say it wasn't as much, but that's in the ballpark of.
It's close.
Oh, good.
Pretty close.
I think some of you know, just a lot of challenges in the valley. Not only lack of houses, which you guys need some houses, and we need some places for people, just the workers. I heard of 3 workers that were up here, they had to move off the hill because they couldn't find a rental. And so those are kind of challenges. We're also finding challenges with people just with the concept of a booster and then maybe another one and another one and another one. And we've been a lot freer up here, I believe, than most of California. And I included the churches. And I appreciate the pastors and the churches staying open, having that available. I appreciate you guys. One of the issues that we've been dealing with, we would go down to Feeding America in Riverside. And I'm not sure why, but they aren't having all the donations food donations that they've had in the past. So sometimes you can't even, you put something down and you even order it online and you still don't get it when you get down there. We're going to be able to finally have a truck coming up once a month, plus what we're doing. But and then for us, for example, we were doing like 1,200 people before the pandemic at the max a week, and now it's then it dropped down to like 400, and then it had been going up to 600. Now it's back to 500, 600 for us as far as people. But we have the food and the challenges go with that and everything, but you guys are a big help, and I just want you to know that. Appreciate the effort, and I know it takes a lot of work. I know about that, and so, but we really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to say, the charity auction that we did and all the work for Cantry wasn't just Matt and myself. We had so many people, and a lot of the people are here today that helped us. And we simply couldn't have accomplished anything at all if it wasn't for that help. And so thank you so much for standing by our side and being there when we're freaking out. But it all came to be, right? So last but not least is Meals on Wheels, and that's Becky Wheeler. So, my dear.
Thank you so much. I'm accepting this on behalf of Meals on Wheels for Kathy Henderson today. She couldn't make it. She did want me to make sure I thank all the realtors. Thank you so much for your generous contributions throughout the years. To all our affiliates, to the drivers that tirelessly volunteer to drive no matter what the weather may be. And to Alpine Restaurant and to the hospital for making the meals. Without this donation, we have several low income or people that have no income that are on Meals on Wheels. And then we also have several that can pay, but unfortunately, we're not part of the big Meals on Wheels that are down the hill. And we barely break even every year. So without this, we couldn't continue on, and thank you so much for that. Kathy also wanted me to reach out to you and see if anybody may want to be a driver. We're short drivers. I only do it 2 times a month. I'll do it. Yay, see me after this. An hour to do. I do it 2 times a month, every other Tuesday. It's not, real estate agents seem to know the area the best and able to work the route better than most people. So that's why we like to reach out to you. Thank you again. And please see me if you would like to volunteer for driving for Meals on Wheels.
And now for the song and dance. Matt, Thank you very much, everybody.
Definitely, it's one of the most rewarding, if not the most rewarding, at a scholarship. I think it really helps our community. And am I correct in you're still stepping down?
Yes.
Okay. Regretful.
Years, yeah. In the future, it'll change, but we just need a break.
Yeah, they need a break.
Who's replacing you?
I don't know.
We don't know. That was my next. So if anyone would like to volunteer as a cancer chair, or even a group or a team, let me know, or let Robin know. We're be happy to give it to you.
I'm not volunteering, but I have a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't need to go through the very, very difficult fundraising efforts if every agent donates $200 a year.
That's right.
That would be $80,000. So
Say that again, Maureen. What'd you say?
if we wouldn't have to fundraise if every agent every year would donate like $200 to $250 annually.
Yeah.
And then we can have a. That's what I So we really wouldn't need to have, I mean, it's very time consuming and difficult to do all this fundraising. So I know as agents do pretty good. So $250 a year would more than cover the fundraising.
Wonderful. That's a great idea.
Just saying.
Put that out to the membership. I know that some agents don't really do this full time and may not be able to donate the full 200 to 250, but there are many of us that do this full time and can easily maybe donate $400, $500. Anyways, all righty, let's moving right along. We've got Armando Mendoza and Colin Powers reporting on census data and redistricting. Now, are they via Zoom?
They're joining us virtually.
Okay.
And there's Colin.
Hi, Colin. Okay, all right, well then I will sit down and let you give your report.
So Armando would be first.
Oh,
Is Armando?
I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Let me share my screen here. So again, my name is Armando Mendoza. I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau, and I'm a data dissemination specialist. So the primary purpose of this session is to learn about 2020 census data releases, what we have released thus far. I'm going to describe the differences between the decennial census, which happens every 10 years, and the American Community Survey, which is the source of a very rich source of socioeconomic and demographic information at the nation down to the neighborhood level. And then at the end, I'm going to go online and show you a few of the data tools that you can use to extract data. In an hour session, it's really impossible to cover everything that we do. So this is designed to be an overview. We have a very diverse audience with different data needs. So if I don't cover something that that you need, my role is as a data dissemination specialist is to provide you support. I cover several counties. I cover Riverside, San Bernardino, Imperial, Orange County, and San Diego County. I'm based in Orange County. And again, we give you support by providing this type of training, by providing support over the phone. So again, I'm going to share a lot of information. Some of it is complex, some of them is confusing, if you will. But again, my full function is to provide you support. So let me begin by telling you that the decennial census is actually a constitutional mandate. You can read it on Section 1 of the Constitution. And the primary purpose is to distribute or reapportion the 435 seats in the House of Representatives. Something significant happened in our state in California. This is the results with the reapportionment from 1910 to 2020, the latest census. And you can see that the state of California has been gaining political power since the inception of the state. You can see that in the 1930s, we gained 9 congressional seats. Even in the 1990, we gained 7 congressional seats. And then as the population didn't decrease, it just didn't grow as much or as fast as other states, we began to taper down. So in 2000, we received 1 congressional seat. And the significant happened in the last 2 censuses, the fact that for the first time since the inception of the state, California in 2010 did not receive a congressional seat. And even worse, if you want to call it that way, in 2020, the state lost 1 seat. So again, it carries significant political implications that not a lot of people know. That's why we make a huge effort in making sure that we have a complete and accurate count. So the public law 94-171 is the law that requires the Census Bureau to provide the population of the states to do the redistricting. So the data from the decennial census is used to redraw the congressional districts, the legislative districts, the school districts, but also the data is used to distribute over $675 million federal funds. So again, it carries a lot of economic implications as well as political implications. This is what the data has so far. We released the data in phases. So right now you can find data on voting age, race, Hispanic and Latino, and occupancy status of the dwellings. That data was released in the legacy format on August 12 of 2021. Later, the following month, we released the data in an easy to use format that I'm going to show you where you can get the data. The data that we released on August 12 was a really cumbersome process. You had to have some knowledge of databases because you needed to go and download the data from an FTP site, then sort of format the data. So it was a little cumbersome, but now we have, as I mentioned, an easy to use format. Later products from the decennial census in 2010 and 2020 will be released later this year. So for example, on the race, there are 5 race categories: white, Black, African American, American Indian, Alaska Native, Hawaiian Pacific Islander, and Asian. So for example, on the Asian population, you can find the aggregate of the Asian population. You wouldn't be able to find the percentage of, say, Vietnamese or Chinese. Those data products will be released later, as I mentioned. Here are some examples. This is totally random that I selected some counties in the Inland Empire, so you can see the population in 2020 represented in the orange bars, and then the 2010 census represented in the blue bars. The next slide shows the percentage change for the same counties. So you can see that among these 3 counties, Riverside County experienced the largest population increase since 2010, sorry. Here, then I selected, since Big Bear, your organization is based in San Bernardino, I pulled data from the decennial census in terms of the population percentage change for San Bernardino County, all the way to the left, San Bernardino City, Fontana, Victorville, Big Bear Lake, and Big Bear City, CDP. The CDP stands for Census Designated Place, and what that means is that the city of Big Bear City is not incorporated. So here's a significant thing to learn if you haven't heard about the American Community Survey. The American Community Survey was implemented in 2005 to replace the long form from the decennial census. From 1940 to 2000, every census we had 2 forms. We had a short form that collected basic demographic information of the household, and then we had a long form that went out to a sample of the of the nation. So in 2000, 1 in 6 households received the loan form. The loan form collected a lot of detailed characteristics of the household that was not in the short form. For example, income, poverty status, educational attainment. As I mentioned, the American Community Survey replaced the loan form, so now it's being collected yearly. And in 2020 and 2010, the data from the census is only data collected on the short form. The Census Bureau conducts a lot of surveys. We do about 130 surveys on many subjects, but the American Community Survey is the largest survey that we conduct. It's sent to 3.5 million addresses per year. So approximately 291,000 households get sampled every month. And the American Community Survey produces detailed population and housing estimates each year. It also produces critical information for small areas and small population groups. And it covers about 35 topics that support over 300 known federal government uses. To the left, if you look to the left on the blue bar toward the bottom, it tells you that the 1-year estimates are for populations that have a threshold of 65,000 or more. The 1-year supplemental estimates are for populations 20,000 or more, and the 5-year estimates are for all geographic levels. It goes down to the neighborhood level. We don't call them neighborhoods, we call them census tracts. Census tracts vary in population from 1,200 to 8,000. The typical average population size of a census tract is about 4,000. There's a lot of questions on the ACS, or the American Community Survey. I haven't been sampled. My household hasn't been sampled, but eventually all of us will. Similar to what the data that we collected on the loan form between 1940 and 2000. So if you look to the left, the demographic characteristics, age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin are data that is also collected in the decennial census. Social characteristics, we can determine the educational attainment. So for example, we can determine the percentage of people that have a high school degree, the percentage of people that have higher education. We can look at grandparents as caregivers, disability status, place of birth, citizenship. You may remember the citizenship question was a highly controversial topic as the decennial census was getting prepared to include the questions in the 2020 census. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was not implemented in the 2020 census. However, the American Community Survey does collect that information. It is important to note that it has nothing to do with legal status. The citizenship question is a basic 2-part question. Were you born in the United States, yes or no? If you say yes, you're part of the native population. If you say no, you are part of the foreign-born population. And part B of the question is if you become a naturalized citizen, yes or no. So again, it has nothing to do with legal status. We can also determine in terms of social characteristics, the language that is spoken at home, the percentage of the people that have internet access. With regards to housing characteristics, which is a characteristic you probably most of you are interested in, we can look at tenure. So the percentage of people that rent, the percentage of people that own, the occupancy status, the structure, the housing value, utilities, mortgage, or monthly rents. And then all the way to the right, we can look at economic characteristics. We can look at income, the sources of income, benefits, employment status, occupation, commuting to work. So it's a very, very extensive questionnaire. I understand it takes approximately 40 minutes to complete. And in light of the American Community Survey being implemented since 2005, because not everyone has been fallen into sample, a lot of people get confused, particularly during the census, because all of us received the invitation to participate in the census, but a sample of the population also received the American Community Survey, which comes from the Census Bureau, and people get confused. They say, why am I getting a second form? I already completed. It also, again, to some people, it may seem intrusive because we do ask a lot of questions, but it is really important and significant that we receive that information because it's a representative sample. So every household that receives the questionnaire in the mail, represents about another 1,000 housing units in the area. So it's critical that we receive that information. That information is used specifically for statistical purposes only. So it is a lot of questions that people get sometimes annoyed, and they call us and they say, why you want to know what time I go to work in the case of commuting to work, or what mode of transportation you use. And it's not the federal government, it's not the US Census Bureau spying on people what time they get up to work. And the commuting patterns, which are determined by those questions, is data that is used by traffic engineers to improve the freeways, to improve the roads. Okay, so sorry, my computer got frozen for a minute. I pull again randomly characteristics for this geographic level. So San Bernardino County, San Bernardino City, Fontana, Victorville, Big Bear City, and Big Bear Lake City, and Big Bear City. This comes from the 2019 5-year estimates. That period covered 2015 to 2019 on the 5-year estimates. Remember that these are for all geographic levels. Big Bear Lake City and Big Bear City CDP are very small geographic levels. So the only way that you can get data, remember the threshold. The 1-year estimates are for 65,000 and above. I don't remember exactly what the population is in these two cities, but I think one of them is around 5,000, the other one is about 12,000. So the only data that is available for those two geographies are from the 5-year estimates. In the case of San Bernardino County, you can find it on the 1-year estimates as well as the 5-year estimates. I mentioned that this can be complex and sometimes difficult to understand. The differences between the 1-year estimates and the 5-year estimates, besides the population thresholds, the 1-year estimates are more recent, but less accurate. The 5-year estimates are more accurate, but less recent. That's just simple statistics. The 5-year estimates produce a larger sample, which means that it reduces the margins of error. And I'll go through that in a minute. So average household size per person, then the percentage of married couples. Next is the percentage of households that have at least one children under 18 years old. Next one is the place of birth, what I mentioned earlier. So the blue bar represents the US native population. The orange bar represents the foreign-born population. So for example, the 13.8% of the foreign-born population in Big Bear Lake City, let's see, so 41.4 of the 23% have become naturalized US citizen, 58.6% are not US citizen. Again, nothing to do with legal status. Perhaps they don't qualify to become a US citizen or other areas, but again, it is not, we cannot determine the legal status of the population. Next is the percentage of people that speak a language other than English at home. And then the next slide shows Spanish being prevalent in San Bernardino County and Victorville. There's a little, it's not a typo in Victorville. Something happened. What I do is I pull the data, I import it into an Excel file, and something is wrong with, I was doing this last night, and I don't know why it's not showing, it's not a typo. It's something with the spreadsheet. But anyways, that's the percentage of people that speak Spanish at home, represented in blue bars, and then something else in orange bars. Next one is educational attainment. This is for the population that is 25 years and over. So this is what is considered the high school dropout rate, because this is for the population, again, 25 years and over that did not complete high school and are not currently enrolled in high school. And invariably, I do a lot of presentations. I pull data that is relevant to the audience, that is either going to confirm that what you already know, or is going to enlighten you and see the differences. But invariably, there's a direct correlation between educational attainment, income, poverty, crime, most likely, although crime is not collected on this survey, but you will be seeing, you can start making an inference in terms of the educational attainment. So this is less than high school diploma. This is high school diploma or equivalent. And then we go into higher education, the percentage of bachelor's degree. So you can begin to make an inference. Look at Big Bear Lake City in terms of bachelor's degree and then graduate professional degree. So again, you can make a correlation that will probably tell us, I just pulled this data last night. So that it's going to tell us that most likely the higher education, the higher median household income, and the lower poverty rates. So median household income. And then the next one, I believe, is people below poverty. So again. Next one is tenure. So the blue bar represents owner occupied, the orange bar represents renters. And I believe this is the last slide. I'm going to provide Robin so she can distribute a copy of the presentation if you're interested. The last slide has my contact information, so you are welcome to, if what I'm going to show you live and I don't do a sample of the geographic levels that you cover, feel free to send me an email. That's the easiest way to do this. And I can provide you support and guide you to how to access the data that you need, either by creating we don't use Zoom at the Census Bureau, we use WebEx, but we can create a session specifically for your data needs. Or if it's a simple question, I can respond to you via email. You're welcome to call me as well, but I may not be able to pick up the phone. I do conduct quite a few workshops, and unfortunately today we're doing this virtually. My preference is to do this live. Because people have a tendency, I have a tendency, since we are attending a lot of webinars, to sort of start multitasking. So for me, it's more efficient and more effective to be in person to do this type of training, but right now it's just relegated to do this online. Eventually we'll get out in the field, and I'll be happy to do this. We do this completely free of cost to you. It's already being paid by us as taxpayers. This program, the data dissemination program, was implemented right after the decennial census in 2010, because the census director recognized the need to continue to educate the public in terms of why the census is so important, the political implications and the economic implications that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, with the aim of increasing the response rates, because response rates continue to decline for private and public organizations. And so we do this for free to educate the public in terms of why the Census Bureau data is so important and the vast amount of data that many people can use. So they implemented this program, again, after the decennial census, to go out and conduct these things free of charge, because again, the aim is to increase the response rates. I began my career with the Census Bureau in 2009. I was part of the management team that conducted the decennial census in 2010. I oversaw 5 of 39 local census offices in our region. And to conduct the most expensive phase of conducting a census is called the non-response follow-up. Those are the households that did not return the questionnaire in the mail or by a personal visit by a Census Bureau, a person going knocking on the door. And it's very, very expensive. Of those 5 offices, we hired 10,000 people to go and knock on the door of households that did not return the questionnaire in the mail. So again, we do this for free with the aim of increasing the knowledge of the general population of why the Census Bureau is so important. It's also important to note that every census employee is sworn for life not to divulge the information, and the penalties for doing that are pretty steep, as $250,000 in jail and or 5 years in prison. So again, we take the extra measures to protect the confidentiality of the respondents, and it is governed by Title 13 of the U.S. Code, which mentioned the confidentiality. So now I'm going to stop here for a second and see if there are any questions before I move on to the live presentation.
Okay, thank you,
You
Armando.
can stop
We do-
sharing the screen too. What's up? You can stop sharing, there we go.
Okay, we do have one question so far.
Thanks, Armando. I have a couple questions. The first one is, if you're sending surveys to house addresses and you discover that a house is a second home for someone that lives somewhere else, is that counted as 0 family members in the house, or is it counted, how's that counted?
Can you repeat the question again? It's a little hard to hear you.
So when you send a survey to an address and that house belongs to someone who owns another house where they live, it's a second home for them and they don't live there. How is that
Right.
counted in the survey?
Right. So that's a really good question. Yes. So for the decennial census, the rule is that where did you live on April 1st? That's the reference date, because people sometimes do have a vacation home. So the rule is, where did you live on April 1st, or where do you spend most of the time? It's the same thing for college dormitories. So the students are usually, the data is collected from the housing where they live. And yeah, it can be confusing because sometimes the parents add a child that is away in college, living in a dormitory. And that is why we ask people to provide a phone number for anything that we need to verify.
Okay, thanks. The second part of my question is, do we get representation for people that live here but may not be a US citizen?
Yes, and as I mentioned, the Constitution says that we must conduct a census every 10 years and count the entire population regardless of legal status. And again, the citizenship question is not, the question is, are you here legally or not? We don't know.
So your census data counts that, but then do we get representation in Congress for those people that are living here but are not US citizens?
Yes, because again, is based on the population total.
Okay, it just seems counterintuitive that we lost representation when there's clearly way more people. Do we get representation for homeless people, and is there any way to count that?
Yes, so remember, the Constitution says we must count everyone that lives in the US. And the way that so the census is of several phases. We do conduct a count of the homeless, people experiencing homelessness. We do that in one night. So for example, in 2010, I was in charge of 5 offices, including the 2 most difficult areas to conduct the census, downtown LA and East LA, and 3 others. To conduct the homeless population count, we actually work with organizations that provide services to those populations. We determine where they congregate at night because they're pretty mobile. So they may live, they're pretty mobile during the day, but then at night they may live in a park or in a street. So we have predetermined places where we go at night, because that's the easiest way to determine the head count. And we go out and actually do a count. People that are sleeping, we just let them sleep. We just take a count. So again, it is based on the total population. And again, it's not that California is not growing. It's just not growing as fast as other states. I didn't have a slide to show you, but for example, in 2010, the biggest winner, if you will, in terms of population, in terms of congressional representation, was the state of Texas, who won 4 congressional seats. And then I believe was followed by Florida, who won 2 seats. And then on the losing side, I think Ohio and New York State lost 1 seat. That's back in 2010. I didn't have the slide that shows the results for 2020, but again, California grew, I think about 8% in 2010, I think a little less in 2020. But again, it's not the fact that the California is losing population, we're just not growing as robustly as in prior decades.
Is there a count for how many families or people have exited California in the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years, that have relocated, sold their homes and moved to other states?
Not directly, but again, you can make an inference with the apportionment, the data that we release, and you can see the states that have grown. Again, Texas, I think, won an additional 2 or 3 congressional seats in 2020, in addition to the 4. So you can make an inference that people are moving, not specifically from California, but other places in the country that are moving and migrating to Florida, to Texas. But there isn't anything specific that we know that people, left, or how many people left.
My question would be, you mentioned that 1 out of 6 people will receive something in the mail, was that correct?
That was a sample for the loan form in 2000. So in the decennial census in 2000, 1 in 6 households received the loan form. But then in 2010 and in 2020, because the loan form was replaced by the American Community Survey, the data is not collected anymore, which is another source of confusion. Sometimes people are looking for educational attainment from the 2010 census or from the 2020 census, and of course they're not going to find it because it's not being collected anymore. So again, the 1 in 6 houses was a sample in the decennial census in 2000.
Okay, so this leads to my question. I noticed that because someone visited our house yesterday, you must have boots on the ground in Big Bear. And in previous years, there have been lots of teams out taking the census manually, knocking on doors, and not finding anyone home because they normally work or they're gone through the week and home on the weekends, and the census people only work during the week. Are you mailing to PO boxes, or what you're just canvassing again? Because the reason I ask is we've had to redo the census here before because the city of Big Bear Lake hasn't received all the tax money that should come to them because the figures are so skewed. And it's a problem here every year. And I just asked the question if you guys look at those problems and what you're doing to remedy that.
So again, with regards to the decennial census, and you said that somebody was knocking on door. Remember I mentioned earlier, the Census Bureau conducts about 130 surveys. So that person knocking on the door may not be, right now is not the decennial census, it's something else. Because the decennial census in 2010 was completed in October of last year. So it could be another survey. And then with regard, we don't work Monday through Friday. We actually go and we go the extra, we work after hours. We work Saturdays or Sundays, and we make a huge effort to make sure that we have a complete and accurate count. So in the case of somebody, they go and knock on the door because the people did not respond to the invitation that is usually sent out in the mail. That's the only reason why we go and knock on the door. People did not respond. So we go and knock on the door. If we don't find somebody, we go at night, we go on the weekend, we go in the morning, we go at night. And I believe, I don't remember the exact number, but I think we went up to 6 times to the household to make sure that we had a complete and accurate count. In the case that we don't find anybody after the 6th attempt, what we do is we do by proxy. And what that means is we go to the next door neighbor, or if it's an apartment complex, we go to the management office and ask those people, do you know how many people live there? And we can gather the information that they can give us, and we do that by proxy. So again, we make a huge effort to make sure that we have a complete and accurate count, and it's not a Monday to Friday. It's really, it's through extended hours on the weekend as well.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions here? I do believe we have one question from the Zoom crowd.
I think it's been there since the beginning, but we will check here. Happy New Year.
Hi, Jose.
Happy New Year. And just some comments. I don't know if there's a, hold on, there might be one up here. Nope, everyone's saying good morning and Happy New Year.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mendoza. That was a lot of great information. And anyways, thank you for everything. And next we have Colin Powers.
Do you know, sorry, Robin, was that you? That was the first section. If I have the time, what I like to do is actually go live and tell you where all this data reside. But again, it's relegated to the time. If I have time, I'll show you a couple of the tools. If not, then I'll send the copy of the presentation, and then people may reach out to me via email.
Thank you very much. Okay, Colin Powers, you're up.
Well, hello, everybody. I have to say, I am here to talk about politics, and I am a floating head on the wall. So this kind of feels like super spy, super villain-esque, but it's gonna be fun. Super honored to be here today. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Can everybody hear me all right before I begin?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, today I'm here to talk about redistricting and what that looks like in Big Bear. For those of you who I haven't had the chance to meet or speak to yet, my name is Colin Powers, and I am a government affairs field representative from the California Association of Realtors. A lot changed this year, and so it's really cool that I'm here. This is actually my first presentation on redistricting, and it's going to you guys. So if you have any comments, concerns, whatever, feel free to let me know after, and I'd be more than happy to address those. There's a lot to be prepared for, and when I say prepared, we want to be more prepared going into this election than I was when I actually came to Big Bear 2 weeks ago without chains. I quickly became prepared after that, but for here, we were trying to be prepared before. To tell a little bit about redistricting, and we just got a great presentation from Armando, and full disclosure, Armando, I'm going to steal a lot of that, so thank you. But redistricting happens once every 10 years. It's carried out by California's Independent Redistricting Commission to make sure that this is the second time this has happened, to make sure that these lines are as unbiased as possible. These districts are going to be what we have going forward for the next 10 years. And that's why it's incredibly important and an incredibly exciting time. While this commission was independent, it did have a lot of outside contributions from special interest groups, communities, local governments, things like that, who all wanted to stay together. And as you all know now, since we did lose a congressional seat, there was a lot that changed this year. A lot got thrown up in the air of people wanting to stay in the same districts, cities wanting to be next to other cities, and so on and so forth. CAR is no different than these other groups. We played a heavy hand in this. We wanted to stay as involved as possible in some of these key districts. And when I say key districts, I mean, it could be, Democratic districts, Republican districts. But if I'm being honest, we played more of a hand in the Republican districts this year for one very important reason. I'm going to go ahead one slide. If this is the current makeup of our state assembly and our state senate, and there's one thing you're going to notice off the bat: it is very, very blue. And if you're a Democrat, that's great. If you're a Republican, there's work to be done. But from a association standpoint, we want to encourage debate. We want the democratic process to carry out. Because right now, when it's just a one-party system that is so heavily saturated, it's really hard to stop bad bills sometimes. You need a two-party system to be able to make amendments, make changes, at least have some dialogue about what else can be done to some bills to either mellow them out or add in key components that we need. So that was a huge thing that we did this year, and a huge thing that we played a part in. We don't know if we're successful yet, as this doesn't take effect until June of 2022 for those primaries. But it is something that we're definitely going to keep working on and keep getting updates on as it happens. Just for some background knowledge, in your average state assembly district, those are made up of about 465,000 people. Your average state senate district is 930,000 people, and your average congressional district is about 710,000 people. Fun fact, a lot of people don't realize is that your state senate districts are actually the biggest district in California. And so let's get into your assembly district. These are your old lines. This is what the old 80-33 looked like, currently represented by Assemblyman Thurston Smith. It was a Republican-leaning district by about 1.4%. And if you look at it in the east, you're touching Parker, Lake Havasu. Towards the north, you're passing Highway 15, northwest around Ridgecrest, and down to you guys in the southwest corner in the San Bernardino National Forest. So let's see what it looks like today. These are the new lines. It is a very different map, but also keeps some of the same elements. If you look, the first thing you're going to say is, Colin, there's 2 assembly members there. Why is that? And that's because due to all the shuffling and these new districts, 2 Republicans were actually drawn into the same district, Assemblyman Thurston Smith and Assemblyman Tom Lackey. Assemblyman Thurston Smith took over the seat in 2020, a relatively new assemblyman. Tom Lackey's been in the assembly for since 2014. His seat is, if you look at this map, what I call the tail. That little thing that comes off the left side that goes down into LA, past like Lancaster and Palmdale, that area. Assemblyman Thurston Smith's original district, as you saw from that previous slide, is pretty much the main body of this map. The differences now, at least in this map, is that it no longer goes to Needles and Lake Havasu and Parker. It cuts off right before that, and it incorporates some of the cities down here like Joshua Tree and 29 Palms in the south. This district is now overwhelmingly Republican. It's a Republican advantage district. It's a 9.7% Republican district, which is huge for Republicans. And whoever gets this seat will be very excited to have that, as it's going to be a Republican seat for a very, very long time. As you see, there's 2 Republicans. This is probably the worst outcome if you're the Republican Party here, because they're going to have to either run against each other, which is more likely, or one's going to have to step down. At CAR, I know we have a great relationship with Tom Lackey. He's been around for a long time, and we have a great relationship with him. Thurston Smith's relatively new, and so just this is me speaking to you guys. If you have any input or any advice, I'd love to hear that input from you all. Just giving you my 2 cents right now. But if we look at the breakdown of this district, like I said, the population demographics heavily lean a white district. It's 56.7% white, followed by a large Latino population. It will be an interesting election and an interesting sequence of events to see how this one turns out. But we will keep you all posted on what we hear in our circles. Here's your old state Senate district, represented by Senator Ochoa Bogue. This was Senate District 23. One thing I want you all to do is look at this map in the top, and you'll see that's where Big Bear is, at the north end of this map. This district was leaning Democrat. It was a Dem plus 2.4% seat. They had a 2.4% advantage in this seat. Senator Ochoa Bogue took this seat, flipped it in a 2020 presidential election cycle, which was pretty impressive. She herself has been a board member at the East Valley Association of Realtors. She's been a realtor for the last 18 years. She passed some legislation this year that CAR supported, SB 601, which incentivized homeowners to sell to first-time home buyers. And she actually joined me and a bunch of her surrounding local associations, including Big Bear, on August 4th for a town hall where she dove into a lot of cool topics like housing affordability, housing supply, COVID-19 recovery, and she had a lot of great tidbits of information. So let's see how that ended up for her. And again, remember, Big Bear's in the north of that map. Here's the new map. Here are the new lines. And as you'll see, Big Bear is now in the southwest of this map as well. It looks strikingly similar to Thurston Smith's district 8034. This map, she gets her population as here, let me move my little guy. She has 529,000 registered voters. So where did she get all these extra voters from? If you look at her map, it goes very far down in the south towards cities like Beaumont, Hemet, Palm Springs, and it wraps right around Indio, so Indio is not included, but then it goes around the entire Joshua Tree National Park and back up. But aside from that, it looks, like I said, strikingly similar to 8034. Her district, like I said, was a Dem-leaning district. Now it's Republican-leaning. But when I say Republican-leaning, it is Republican-leaning by 0.9%, so not very Republican. I would not be surprised to see if the Democratic Party launched a heavily targeted campaign on this seat, because this is a very flippable seat, especially just seeing that number right there. It's a swing district for sure. Senator Ochoa Bogue has done it before against worse odds, so it will be interesting to see. She's carrying over about 44% of her original constituency. One thing I should have mentioned on the 80-34 slide was that Assemblyman Thurston Smith carried over about 50% of his original constituency, and Tom Lackey carried over about 38%. Sorry, got off track there a bit. But like I said, it will be an interesting election. This year is going to be crazy. But yeah, so let's get into congressional now. Look at that map. I can't believe that Congressman Obernolte had this map. That SNO in the left corner is Fresno. He had almost half the state. The political nerd in me just geeks out over that. That is insane. This was a Republican leaning district. It was 3%. And let's see how that turned out for him. So if we look at this map, it again looks strikingly similar to the Senate and Assembly districts. It's now more Republican. It's leaning 4.38% to the Republican side. Congressman Obernolte has been around for a while. He's represented 80-33. He's been a Big Bear Lake mayor. He's a Big Bear Lake resident. And like I said, been around for a while. He carried over 85% of his constituency. So I don't think he could have gotten a better drawn lines out of this, and he doesn't have to fly halfway across the world anymore. So I think Congressman Obernolte is in a good seat, at least for the time being. And yeah, very interesting. I included these other races to watch if you're a political junkie out there, or you're just curious of how everything is gonna wrap up this year. These are some Orange County districts, and the reason I included Orange County, I know it's not really pertinent to you all, is that Orange County used to be a Republican stronghold in California. It was the last little tidbit that everyone was on the same page, and today it's not. Every year, every election cycle, Orange County turns more and more into a battleground, and that has huge impacts on the rest of our state because they're all going to Sacramento and all voting on the same laws. I just wanted to include these three races and these three key district changes. Assemblywoman Janet Wynn, she represented Huntington Beach recently. 8072 was her previous district. It was Republican leaning. It was redrawn into 8070, which is a Democrat leaning district. And just to make matters worse, her home was drawn out of her own district. So she can no longer run for that seat. She has announced, she's spoken about it. I'm not sure if it's official yet, that she will be running for her Senate district, which she used to represent and recently lost to Senator Tom Umberg. But we'll get to that in a second. Assemblymember Lori Davies formerly represented 8073, she represents 8073, one of the last great strong Republican districts in California. I actually did, when I was in college, I did a whole senior project on 8073 because of how I thought it'd be easy because it was so Republican. This district, when I was doing that project, I learned something huge, is that each year this district became closer and closer and closer. And so going into this election, losing 6% of your advantage is going to play a huge role in seeing how that turns out. And already a Democrat has announced she'll be challenging Assemblymember Davies this year. And that is in South County, if I neglected to mention that. So that'll also be an interesting one to watch. Assemblymember Cotty Petrie Norris, she was a Democrat representing the coastal community of Orange County. She had a very, very slight leaning Democratic district in 8074. And it was redrawn into 8072, which is now an incredibly strong Republican district. She's talked about moving to 8073, just picking up and moving, as that seat is now a Dem plus 12.6% advantage, and it's currently occupied by a Republican Assembly member. So I'm sure Assemblymember Stephen Choi isn't too thrilled about his new seat, but that'll be interesting to see as well. In other Senate races to watch, like I said before, Senator Tom Umberg in SD 34, he had a very strong Democratic seat, is now a Republican leaning seat. And like I said, Assemblymember Janet Wins talked about running against him again. They're like political rivals. They've gone at it for the last couple of years, or like a couple of cycles. And so that will be interesting to see as well. Senator Pat Bates, a long-term Republican in the Senate, she will be terming out this year. And already there have been 2 people that have announced they'll be running for that seat, and that was Matt Gunderson. He's a small business owner. I believe he owns a couple car dealerships, against Democratic Mayor of Encinitas, Catherine Blakespear. That is now a Democratic seat as it's moved further into San Diego County, further towards San Diego. But that's another one that's going to be pretty crazy to watch. And finally, on the congressional level, Congressman Mike Levine, his district has just become slightly more competitive and already has been challenged, well, I shouldn't say already been challenged. Some information that I've found from scouring the web. GOP Orange County Supervisor Lisa Bartlett has started fundraising and has started a website to make a congressional run for this seat. So that's another one to watch for, as that would be a huge win for the Republicans in Congress. And with that, I am done. I'd be happy to go back to any slide if you would like. Like I said, always looking for input, always looking for to hear from you guys. I was thrilled to be joined today by CAR's VP of Political Affairs, Liza Negrete, who was kind enough to join me. So thank you everybody for listening in, and I always appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a question for Colin.
I would love to hear it.
Okay. We've got one on but it might be Jose. Okay, all right. Okay, well, thank you so much for giving all this information. And next, well, we do have committee reports, but before I go to that, I'd like to bring up Annette.
I don't need to come out like this.
No, get up here.
You have to be close to the microphone.
You know, she's the whole reason I stand here before you. When she was president, she's like, Nikki, you need to get involved. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? And she put me on the MLS committee. Where I served for many years, but
you did.
Thank you.
And we appreciate all you do. Real quick, just because I had nothing better to do. About a month ago, I joined the Mountain Homeless Coalition. I'm on their board now, and we work across the mountains. So we work all the way from Crestline through Big Bear Valley. And we are going to be doing a couple things. First, you're going to be getting a letter that's probably going to come out in the next week or so. What their main goal is to prevent homelessness. So what they're trying to do is capture people before they end up in the streets, get them into housing. That's not always the case. Sometimes we can't catch them just because of the lack of housing right now. San Bernardino County has a program through the Housing Authority that is funded by the federal government that is literally paying a very fair amount of money to get these people in homes. It's like $14.95 for 1 bedroom, $18.11 for a 2-bedroom, $23 something for a 3-bedroom. If we can get the owners to cooperate. So the owner will get a $1,000 sign-on bonus. The Housing Authority will help pay for all their deposit. They will help pay for any kind of application fees to get these people in homes. So with the letter that's going to go out to realtors is, if you have any owners, if you have anybody who maybe doesn't use their cabins that would be interested in this program, please contact me. I'm going to be the representative for Big Bear. There's going to be different people listed, but contact me so that we can work with them. There's a group called Brilliant Corners that is working, I think they're out of Rancho Cucamonga. They actually work with the homeowner to get them all on the program, to get them signed up. And then it's an automatic deposit straight from the Housing Authority. So it's an excellent way for somebody that maybe that's sitting on the fence about what to do with their cabin. Maybe they don't use it a lot, or maybe they have it on a vacation rental and, you know, maybe this will be a better way to flip it over. We are looking desperately for homes. I will tell you, it has been a huge learning curve watching what's going on with the homeless up here. So
Go ahead.
How long is the waiting list of people?
Right now, as of yesterday, they just finished. They had 455 slots. And so now, today is beginning the waiting list. But we just placed one yesterday, so that opens up a slot, you know, so anytime we can get more people on the program, the better. So we're gonna be doing a homeless count, which anybody who would love to help with this, I sure would appreciate it. On January 27th, we go around and we count the homeless. So we've got, you know, different people that are helping us locate these people, but if you know of any, if you know pockets of them, let me know, because we do this count. The amount of money we get is based upon, from the federal government, it's based on how many homeless we have in our area. And I don't know how many of you read Frank Brush's newsletter, and he said we had 2 in Big Bear Lake. I'm like, really? I can find 2 sitting behind Kmart. Right now, there's about 10 of them behind Kmart, right? And they live in the ditches, and they're living in, you know, they're all over the place.
Post office.
But post office, so we just need access to, they only give us a window of 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. to contact these people, get their names, get them, you know, we have like an app on our phone, and then we will, you know, be able to say, okay, here's how many homeless we have. Our funds are based off of how many there actually are.
Right, and so this is just targeting homeless people. This is not people that are.
No, these are, well, the count is for the homeless. They're not at this time looking at a bed hopping, where maybe somebody's just moving from house to house, sleeping in a bed. They're actually looking for people who no longer have a roof over their head. But eventually, we're working on getting those counted too, because they're homeless, as you know.
No, I meant like people that are needing a new home because it's being sold, and so they gotta move.
Correct, those are the people we're targeting. So we're trying to get them before they become homeless. I mean, I know the name is there, and then, I mean, basically for funding, you know, but it's really to prevent homelessness. It's to get them before. So what we're trying to do is make sure that these people, if you know of anybody, have them call. Even if we have to put them on a waiting list, it's better than nothing, you know, because a lot of them are paying $700-800 a month, and they get out and it's $2,000 a month to replace it. They just can't do it. And those are the people we're trying to help. So.
Don't we have more homeless people in the summer too? A lot of them kind of
Yeah,
migrate off.
we do, but this is a San Bernardino count, so they'll probably, a lot of them are down somewhere. Why they do it in January, why they do it at 7 in the morning, who knows? But I mean, to me, do it in the middle of July, you know, they've got a lot better count, but it's, you know, it's a government thing. So
I guess I have 2 questions. So does this program, is it supplemental? Do they still have to pay something?
yes,
Okay, that's
so they have to pay, depending on what their current income is, however they receive funds, they have to pay up to 30%.
Okay.
But if they only have, let's say they only have $500 a month come in, and 30% would be $400, they're not gonna make them, it's like 30% of their income, I should clarify that. So they have to pay, let's say they get a Social Security check for $1,000, they would have to pay up to $333 or $330.
And let's say we were able to locate a home that would be willing to go in on this program. Is there management?
Yes.
Through this agency?
Right, so that really
Or the
corners
property
then,
managers?
they're not really property managers, but they will oversee. And again, I've only been involved in this in less than a month, so.
Okay, but my question is gonna be, any of my clients that I'd be talking to are gonna wanna know, well, who's gonna be my eyes and ears on this house?
Right.
And will realtors be used or compensated for?
There are at least 3 agencies, rental agencies up right now that are working with this program. I mean, they are already on board. So whether that owner wants to sign it up through another program, or whether they do it on their own, all those kind of things I'm still learning about. But, you know, I just want to make sure that when you get this letter, you understand what it's about and why we're sending it out.
And my last question is, who's really funding this?
It's actually the federal government. The money comes from the federal government. Right. We are. But it's a funding program that comes from the federal government and works through the Housing Authority of San Bernardino County. So the check comes from the housing authority, but the funds are actually from the federal government.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are they planning on doing anything regarding the draconian tenant protections? That's the issue that my homeowners have, and it's not.
Most, yeah,
It's not a place to be
no,
allowed.
and that's the hardest thing right now, is explaining to people that it's more about the tenant law that prevents landlords from coming on board, and the challenge of developing. You can't, I mean, the cost to develop doesn't make it affordable anymore. So trying to get that message through, even when we talk to, well, Colin is still in there, but even when we talk to like the people from, you know, the federal, state level, they're like shocked when we brought up the idea, because you know, they did remove the stipulation that you couldn't collect rent any longer. So that's gone. September 30th, that went away. So now you can sue your tenant, but you know, that could be a 2-year process in our court system right now. So who knows? There was a rental assistance letter that went out to the owners or the landlords of the properties that they could apply if their tenants did not pay. And the letter was to help them to collect from the state the funds that were necessary to replace whatever they didn't get paid. Unfortunately, the tenant has to sign it, and many of them didn't. And so I have a client that's a landlord, and I mean, he ordered $14,000, did over $50,000 in damage, and doesn't, he says, nope, I'm not signing it. And there's nothing she can do now except take him to court.
I mean,
Yes.
the problem is, we're finding out is the owners, there's an income threshold. So even if they owe you money, you make over $150,000 a year, you don't qualify.
Right, that was the other part of it.
Right.
And so they're kind of loosening on that a little bit, but they still put so many stipulations on it, and then they complain that the landlords are selling the properties. It's like, but they didn't do anything to compensate for mortgages. Most of these were hitting their forbearance, the end of their forbearance period, and they were going to lose it. So a lot of them are selling them because they didn't have any choice. So it's a really warped system, like one side doesn't talk to the other. And you would think that over time, it's like, okay, if you're going to let a tenant not pay for what turned out to be 16 months, that then you then compensate the owner for being good enough to hold that tenant in place for those 16 months without any pay. And of course, you know, it's like talking to, you know, a blank wall, but it's getting better. It's just not where we'd like it yet.
Well, that's going good, but that's just COVID stuff. It's been a mess for the mom and pop full-time rental long before COVID. And as my good friend Miriam has enlightened me, you can't, you know, these homeowners can't even take those losses off their taxes.
On their California.
On their California, they're federal, yes, they're California. And California's, I don't even want to get started because yes, ma'am.
One more thing, Jessica had a question I forgot to mention. There is no timeline at which that tenant has to commit to. So you can, as an owner, you can go month to month, you can do 3 months, you can do 6 months, where in most cases, you know, they want a year lease. In this particular program, there's no mandatory amount of time you have to lock them in. So it's good for the landlord in a sense, like let's say they want to rent for a 6-month period and they want to do that, they could sign up.
Now, will they be able to get these said tenant out after 6 months without 6 more months of grief?
Well, and these are all the things, because the way the program works, that's kind of on us to get them out. The homeless coalition will actually work on replacing them somewhere else.
Okay.
What about security for the homeowner though? What sort of security does homeowner put up?
You put up the same one, and that's put up by the housing authority. The first month and security is put up by the housing authority, and they also put up the, any application fees.
Wonderful.
And that's if we can get them, they got 4 months from the time they get their voucher. It's called a emergency housing voucher. From the time they get that voucher approval, they have 4 months to find a place. And let me tell you, we're on 2 months with some people already, and it's just, there's very little out there.
Okay, well, thank you for your hard work. It's an excellent idea. Let's see. Okay, well, let's go on to any other reports. Do I have any? Oh, the scholarship committee. Real quick.
I'm pretty loud, so I don't usually need a microphone. So today we don't have raffle prizes because I thought it prudent not to hassle people for donations since we're having the installation in 2 days. And a lot of the affiliates and whatnot have already donated. So just doing a donation jar with about 25 people in the room, we raised $369. So at the installation, and how many more?
72.
Oh, yay, we got 3 more bucks.
3 more bucks.
Wonderful. So anyway, we will be at the installation. Everyone gets 1 ticket as part of your entrance registration. But we'll also be selling additional raffle tickets, and that money will go to scholarship.
Hey.
So that's great. And as far as donations, we're always willing to take donations for prizes. And you can either call me and I'll pick them up, or you can drop them off at the office and Laura will usually help you out with that. And how many real estate agents do we have? 300. So do the math. So 300, now I'm kind of switching to pantry again. So,
60,000.
yeah, that would be $200 times 300 agents is 60,000. Some may not be able to afford the $200. Some may be able to afford more. So think about that. So I'm kind of doing both things. I am not volunteering for pantry. I am not volunteering for pantry. But anyway, thank you so much. It's always very appreciated for this generous community we have here.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any other committee reports? Okay, hope to see you all at the invocation in a couple of days. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns? We have a question, but it's probably.
It's the Happy New Year.
All right.
I have a question. Where are we on the workforce housing initiative? Do we have something like what Annette's talking about going for that yet?
No, not yet. Not that I know of. Nothing. Yeah, we haven't even met in quite some time. So.
The City of Big Bear Lake has submitted their workforce, the housing element paperwork to the state. Basically, giving, what we needed, the required.
212 units.
Yeah, saying yes, we would provide all that information. And it was kind of like just your initial draft that goes in to start the process. I think they have a few projects in mind potentially, but unfortunately, because there's, they're trying to work to get a developer to work together with them, but gosh, the red tape and the regulations to do a development is just almost impossible to follow. So there's some things that the city has leeway on how they want to work with the affordable housing, for instance, like the Homes Coalition owns property, they use it for rentals, and they are putting on 2 more units on a property. We tried to get it to where they would only require 1 parking space, and they said no. At first they said yes, they would do it, but they came back and said no. So, when you're talking homeless people, or you're talking people that are on low income, a lot of money you have here. But because of all the regulations that are out there, you still have to make it match what the requirements are. So anyway.
Thank you, Annette. Okay, anything else? Okay, what time is it? It is 10:30. Okay, we noted, we adjourned at 10:30.